Yeah.
So Judy, everybody in healthcare is really, especially during this time of pandemic, experiencing severe stress, even PTSD, burnout, all those things that we hear about a lot just reading in the newspaper.
Right.
But I'd love to hear from you what has been your personal experience and how that, or if that compelled you to bring these practices to your staff.
Right.
Yeah.
And I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. I knew it was going to take a good couple years. And I'd say by the 5th year is when I feel like it finally has come together. It's taken a long time. But every year would get better. And I think the other thing I noticed is when I came in as a new manager, you have a lot of staff turnover. And I mean, it's hard not to take it personally. You know, you come in and you try to help a unit, and then you find out a lot of your staff leave to go to other institutions locally that are closer to their homes, so they don't have to commute, but also other departments. Maybe they wanted to go outpatient. So I understand that, and I'm glad they stay within Stanford, but it's hard to recruit experienced oncology nurses, I think, for me at that point. So I just figured I need to kind of work together and see how can I retain the nurses that I have and have that resiliency with them, and also just keep them going. I know it's different now. I think, I look back on my career and think, I've stayed in it for 20 some years, and I worked at 2 institutions half of my career. So about 10 years at UCSF, and then about 18 years or so at Stanford. And I realized that a lot of people move around just because of the dynamics of the area where we live.
Yeah.
They want to travel. So for the ones that I'm trying to keep there for at least 3 to 5 years, I thought these little practices would help us kind of come together. And that would be even just having retreats where we don't really discuss. Sometimes you think of a retreat and you think about, I have to go to a staff meeting, I have to learn something. But I really wanted the retreat to be about team building and getting to know their colleagues, whether it's day shift or night shift. Like, I feel like sometimes they play off each other, so they have to work together because we all do rotate.
Yeah.
So I wanted them to feel like it isn't days against nights, that we're all one team. And it did take some time to kind of change people. And I'm not trying to change their personalities or anything, but I think just change their beliefs and their ways about how they work together. So the retreats were a big thing where we would have some mindful retreats. We'd have like team building. We would also do scavenger hunts, so they have to work together. And then just some meditation throughout the day, and it kind of recenters them. They get excited, and you want to calm them down a little bit before you move on to the next transition to the next idea you're working on. And just having that mindfulness. And again, it can be very quick, 30 seconds, just to say, take a couple deep breaths. And I remind them that you can even do that when you're anxious going into a patient's room or having to talk to a patient about something, or even a doctor. I said, just, before you walk in there, just take a couple deep breaths just to recenter yourself. And I notice it helps me when I have to go talk to a patient or talk to a staff member, just to kind of clear, be open, mindful, and just, kind of start with your heart and be positive. And, not every situation is going to come out that way, but at least you're going in open-minded. And also I try to tell the nurses when they go home, to journal if they can, because we do so much in a day that you want to appreciate, and if it works for some people, you want to remember that patient, knowing that you may not see them the next time you come back to work, whether they go home, hopefully in a positive way, or they go home on hospice. Sometimes journaling, I tell them, is positive too, because at least they can write down the thoughts they had or what they did for that patient. And if they don't like to journal, then I say, can you at least try to write down like 1 to 2 good things that happened for every day? There's got to be something. You got a good parking spot or something. It's something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Or, you really connected with your patient, or you gained trust with them. But a patient that never really, it's hard to gain trust with. So I think we do so much, and I think you have to take the positivity out of it and go home with that. And at least it kind of puts peace when you did the best you could.
Yeah.
You delivered the best care you could for your patients, and you want to connect with them, and you want to gain that trust, but then you also want to have that team work together. So I think, to start your day positive and to try to end it, I try to remind the staff, whether they do it or not, that's their decision, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think, the more you remind them, eventually it might hit a couple when they go home and realize, or on their drive home, they might reflect on what you say.
Yeah.
And hopefully that helps them.
Yeah, that's great. That's exactly what we're trying to do with the shift.
Right.
The shift data that we're putting out there is, I think what you mentioned is, we call it a gratitude practice, right? Where you think of just 3 things that were positive that happened and kind of cultivate that garden of positivity in
Right.
your mind.
Right.
And that really, especially over time, makes a huge difference in kind of your set point being positive or negative.
Right.
And have you noticed any yourself? Have you had to do research to get evidence-based information to support what you're doing?
So for like the pause pouches that I mentioned, and also the comfort cart that we use, we've looked up some journals and research of what's worked out there in the past. And again, it's more about resiliency, I think, and how to retain staff and to avoid burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And there is not a lot, but there is some journals and articles.
Yeah.
We're also hoping with the data that we've just taken, we collected about the pause pouch. We asked staff, how do they feel when they didn't have it? Did they feel like they needed some support? And what was some ideas? And that's kind of where we got the idea from. The staff said they'd like to have a moment to go off the unit or someone to cover them for a couple minutes. Whether it's to have a piece of candy, to have a cup of coffee or tea, or just to have a positive thought. So we thought we could combine a couple of those things together, and that the person can choose from that. So once in the next 6 months, once we kind of keep rolling this out and encouraging staff to offer it to each other when they notice a situation, then we're going to do another data survey just to see, do you feel it's positive? Is it really working for you? Do we need to change it? Is there anything we can add to it or take away, or is it something you don't like at all? So, but I would say overall right now it's been pretty positive. So I'm hoping it continues, and from there I would like to see if the nurses would be interested in going a little farther than a poster presentation, maybe doing a journal article down the road. So we'll see.
Great. Judy, thank you so much for joining us. It's really been wonderful to hear all the amazing things you've been doing on your unit, both recently and over the past 5 years. And for our audience who's listening in today, our hope of the Shift team is that you will be able to take some of these ideas and practices back to your units and your clinics and start implementing things that will enable your staff to be more resilient and address the burnout and stress that they're undergoing at this point in time. So again, this is Vanessa Johnson with the Shift team saying thank you for joining us today.